Astra Travelers, and welcome to another episode of Tales of Teyvat, a Genshin Lore Podcast. Last week, we put on our lab coats and ran some experiments while we hung out with Urabashi.
This week, we're wrapping and measuring our brain muscles with the feeble scholar Alhaitham.
Looking for some interesting things to read and observe? Check out our system manual over at talesofteyvat.com for some fascinating visuals based on each episode we do, headset free.
While you're at our site, make sure that you check out our past season and special episodes, artist spotlights from the community for every episode, and wallpapers to download.
Finally, feel free to email us at talesofteyvatpod@gmail.com to let us know what you think of this week's episode and what topics you'd like to see in the future. Additionally, if you visit our website, you can choose to buy us a cup of coffee on Ko-fi because we are all poor, like Alhaitham's roommate. Any funds will go to helping our roommate find a job and buy us coffee beans so that we can keep producing fun episodes for travelers just like you. That being said, I am no longer Alhaitham. I am back to being Fiends. We are talking about Alhaitham today. Alhaitham is our feeble scholar full of muscle, holding up books all day and, writing in his notebook definitely is helping him gain muscle mass. What was your first impressions of Alhaitham? Can you remember them?
I think we all remember when he was introduced and then the side-by-sides of him and Ito and how much taller and larger this feeble scholar is.
I just remember going, he's hot. They were like, let's work a little extra on this guy.
I already know what Brandon's was. Brandon was like, oh, that's Sue from Honkai.
Yeah.
Oh no.
A more butch version of Sue.
I sent Brandon like a family tree today that said that Alhaitham was Sue and Kevin's son, and now my life will never be the same.
And Sue and Kevin had a lot of subtext.
Oh, did they?
Oh yeah, they were best friends.
Quote unquote. They were
Right.
just roommates.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyhow, I honestly don't remember my first thoughts about Alhaitham. I just remember thinking, damn, he's a great actor. He's got some great assets. And I always remember when they released that image of his hand, like stroking a book.
Oh, was that an actual release one or was that just a bunch of art?
That was a very suggestive fingering.
No, there's an Alhaitham art of him holding a book. And everyone was like, I wish I was that book.
Just fiddling with those pages,
Just caressing those leaves.
flicking that page back and forth.
So the fan art came out of that was just a take on some official stuff.
Yeah, this was like him leaning his hand on a book, but it kind of looks like the hand from the Addams Family.
It does.
Oh.
It totally does. Yeah. It does.
Is that the hand's name, Hand?
Yes.
They should give it a better name than that.
Handy.
Handy Finger.
Finger blaster.
No, oh no.
Oh,
But yeah, I just remember everyone being like, I wish I was that book. And I was like, okay, guys, calm down. But same.
But same.
Same. We are introduced to Alhaitham for the first time down in Port Ormos, I believe, down by the water. And we're trying to investigate something involving forbidden knowledge, canned knowledge. Is it canned knowledge?
It's both. Yeah.
It's knowledge in a can.
It's
It does
forbidden
sound-
canned knowledge.
It sounds ridiculous. It sounds like when someone like delivers a can of bread to your house on Christmas.
Oh God, I forgot about canned bread.
Oh, we have someone on Christmas Eve that drops a can of bread off every year.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I'm judging them.
We tried it one year. It was not great, but it wasn't the worst thing I've ever had.
I had a coworker who was big on canned bread and canned chicken, and that was like his lunch all the time. And not to lunch shame him, but it was like, what is going on in New England? This is what you grew up on.
New England be New Englanding.
We meet Alhaitham and we're on a quest to find some canned knowledge. And he asks if he could tag along.
So we're sent to find some goods that were stolen from an Akademiya convoy that was robbed by an Aramite extremist group called Ain al-Amar. And when we get to where they are, which is at Port Ormos, Alhaitham is having an altercation with them. And we find out that this divine knowledge capsule was stolen. And then they have this little fight. And then Alhaitham swipes that canned knowledge from their leader And then he sends us like on this whole like go make friends with Dory and blah blah blah, and it turns into like a whole thing that takes us all over the desert.
And that's also when we first meet Sino, is when him and Alhaitham duel.
When we like a little later
When they cross weapons.
when they start fighting like little bitches in the desert. And
Oh.
Candace and Dia have to be like, now, boys.
I think we even brought that up, that crazy fight in Sino's episode too.
I
Yeah.
bring it up whenever I can. I'm not gonna lie. I loved that fight. Like, I thought it was so cool.
Yeah, it was very cinematic, that's for sure.
Super cinematic, and they also hyped it up, I think, in the 3.1 version of the Archon quest, because we didn't get access to that part of the desert where we go to Aru village,
I think you're right.
and they hyped it up, and it looked like it would be much longer than it actually was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of sad it did not last.
Not always the case.
Truly. It's like if I want a big ass fight sequence.
I also thought it was this interesting look into the characters of Alhaitham and Sino right away. Because at this point, we have an idea of who Sino is, even though we have no idea what he looks like. We know he's like in charge of the Mahamatra. And then we also have Alhaitham, who's an Akademiya scribe. So to see them battling right away was very confusing, and it made you feel like Alhaitham was hiding something from you. And it made you a little weary of both the characters right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until you learned a little more about Sino's background and realized that Sino started the fight, not Alhaitham, that you were able to really be like, oh, okay, he thought that Alhaitham was like an Akademiya spy coming to get him. Got it.
Right.
In which case, Alhaitham is like, I'm too lazy for that.
I don't have time for this such nonsense and people in shorts.
He's like, you're not that important. Sorry.
Maybe if you wore pants, you'd be more important to me.
I mean, Alhaitham wears pants at least.
Yeah, his little like off the shoulder action with his jacket or cape or whatever it is.
His little like diamond on his chest. That's the button that you press to like turn him on and off.
It's a little on and off button.
I feel kind of insulted with the direction we're gonna go with him.
And what?
Just like the roboticness, and
I think there's a lot of humanity in Alhaitham.
yeah, but you can't just turn him on and off.
I mean, Kaveh can.
Well, that's Kaveh. Okay, they're roommates. Oh my god, they were roommates. Sorry.
I think he's more like an Amazon Echo. Like he listens to everything, but he turns himself on when he needs to be on. Like when he
Yeah.
hears like the keyword where he's like, oh, I gotta deal with this. All right.
Similar to Lynette.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? That is actually a very good parallel, because where Lynette is using it perhaps as a trauma response, and we also just know she has no time for anything. Like she's just, if there's one thing we also learned in the Arlecchino quest from her very early on in that quest, it's not giving anything away to it, but she is just like, yeah, nah, not gonna play any of this with me. I'm down to business. Like she doesn't futz around in that way.
What is it with the green and gray characters
Yeah.
being robotic?
Now I gotta start looking at everybody's colors and see if there's other correlations there. That'd be fun.
To what Al said, I just want to say that being robotic isn't a bad thing, and it's totally an external persona.
Ooh.
And you look into his past and how he truly sees the world and his demeanor as a whole, you realize that he's not a robot at all. But he has this outward persona that he's putting on purpose because A, he doesn't want to do extra work. B, Alhaitham's head is so logical that sometimes dealing with other people's emotions isn't the smartest way to deal with it. Where someone like might say, well, we have to deal with this person's emotions. First and foremost, Alhaitham will be like, no, we actually have to solve the fucking problem first, you dum-dums. Like, we can get to their emotions in a little bit. And Alhaitham will agree that their emotions are valid, but we can't think about that right now.
And it comes down to what he does. He's a scribe. He's recording history and recording notes, and an important part of being somebody who records history is to not include a bias of emotion.
I also think it comes from him being a genius. You know, he has interesting parallels with a few characters. Lynette is one, Albedo's another one, Lisa's another one. But he's so freakishly smart that I think from a young age, he realized that he didn't fit in because he was just smarter than everyone, including his own teachers, I'm sure. So he's kind of used to like having to float around in his own world because most people don't really speak his language.
It's so funny that you say that because his grandma, who he lived with after his parents passed away, she sent him to school early because he was so smart. Like by age 7, he was reading stuff that like I couldn't even read. And she decided to send him to school early, and he actually hated everyone and found them to be like not smart enough, very like young Sheldon vibes.
He found it boring. Yeah.
Yeah. And the grandma was like, okay, cool, we'll just homeschool you.
I mean, yeah, when you're posed with a kid that can't be, entertained or captivated by schooling of his quote unquote age group, you gotta push that kid up.
Well, it's also interesting because you think of our other smart characters that we know had childhoods. Like we don't know what happened with Albedo. As much as I love him, was he a kid ever? I don't know. When you look at some of this other like quote unquote smart characters, especially in Sumeru, you have, or from Sumeru, who are studied in Sumeru, like Lisa, Kaveh, Tinyari, they all went to school normally. So it really makes you think, how smart is Alhaitham truly?
I mean, I would say I wouldn't say doubly genius, but the purest and most textbook portrayal of a genius in this game.
And Nahida agrees with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Nahida says that he is basically one of the smartest people, and she really respects his opinion, and she brings him in still, even though he's no longer an acting grand sage and he's a scribe. She kind of goes above and beyond to make sure he's involved in the conversation.
Yeah, and he's a human genius, unlike a chalk genius.
Hey.
But it really says that he inherited a lot of his intelligence from his parents, who were also academia scholars. And so it's really clear that, this is something that he was born with. He's not super smart because he spent so many years studying or anything. It's something that was inherent, in his genetics from the time that he was born. I mean, like you mentioned, when he was 7 years old, he was like reading academic journals.
And his dad was a Haravatat mentor, and his mom was a renowned scholar in Vahumana.
And so just a reminder, Haravatat,
thank you,
is the study of semiotics, which is like the study of signs and symbols. It also includes linguistics, which is a very important theme for Alhaitham. Linguistics is just like, it keeps coming up through his history and his story.
Mm-hmm.
And it also includes runes. So that's Haravatat. And then his mother was in Vahumana, which is ideology, which is the study of causes or reasons for things. And that includes history and social sciences.
Can you give us in-game characters that fit into those two?
Well, Alhaitham himself ends up following in his father's footsteps, and he goes into Haravatat.
Is Hat Guy Vahumana?
Hat Guy.
Wanderer, right?
Because I'm thinking of the Darshan event. Yeah, he's the only playable character.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. I forget very quickly. I know I've said it before. I forget which ones are which and who's who and all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate it.
There are a few other like side character scholars who are, there's a lot of people like who are in this Darshan, obviously, but one of them is also Terzad, who is the scholar we're helping during the Jet storyline.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of like characters where I'm like, who are these people? Oh, Vikram is a member of Vahumana as well, who's one of the people that's like in the running to become the next librarian, basically.
Oh, which is like a really renowned position in the academia. And they have a special name for it.
Yes, it is the Grand Conservator.
Yes, which is what they consider Lisa in Mondstadt.
Yeah. So it's just one of the things you sort of find out as you're learning about the different positions in the academia. Like we know that Alhaitham is the scribe, and the House of Dana, the big library, their grand librarian or head librarian, that position is called the Grand Conservator. There's sort of this like, who's going to get that position kind of thing going on when we're there between Vikram or Rifayat. So there are some people that think that Vikram should get the position, other people that think Rifayat should get it. And one of those NPCs that are talking about it mentions, I think Vikram should get it because he's the most reliable person now that Lisa's not here anymore.
I
Because
love
I heard
that.
that she's the Grand Conservator over in Mondstadt now. So now we need to pick one for us.
So now we need a second fiddle
Yeah.
option, and I guess this is who we're stuck with. Is Vikram the one who tries to convince Lisa to come back when she's in Sumeru for a short time for that reunion?
I think so. I can't remember if it was Vikram or the person who was talking about Vikram.
I love that. It's either Vikram or the one gossiping about
Yeah.
because that's Genshin Impact. It's actually Gossip Impact.
Like I'm assuming, I think it was either Vikram or Shatir was the NPC that's like, well, now that Lisa's not here.
I
So I don't
guess.
remember if it was him trying to convince her or if it was actually Vikram.
Okay. I was just curious,
Oh, and just to go back to your original question, Tiff, other people in Haravatat besides Alhaitham, the other big one, of course, is Farazan.
Okay.
So she's also in that languages and runes one. And also Rifayet, which we just mentioned.
Oh, cool.
Do you think that only Harvatat Darshan members are able to become scribes in Sumeru?
Well, isn't the scribe just kind of like a position that they gave Alhaitham because he wouldn't take Grand Sage?
Yes. And then he was acting Grand Sage because everyone got booted, but that was only for a very short amount of time because he was like, no, I do not want this.
But I think it says that the Akademiya has a tendency to give titles like when needed. Like if someone's really valuable, they'll just give a title to them. So I think that they gave him a job that just kind of fit what he was doing, because his job is kind of similar to the Grand Conservator. I mean, as a scribe, he is responsible for classifying and archiving important documents, but he doesn't have to like attend major meetings or make decisions. So he's really just because he likes to read, right? And they all know that. There's like, he's really smart. He's super valuable. He loves to just sit and read all day. So let's give him the job of scribe. He's like in charge of all these really important documents that we make our decisions sort of around, but all he does is classifies them, archives them. He's not actually making the one that's making any of the decisions about them.
Mm.
It kind of reminds me of like a college president versus deans of specific studies. Like you have the dean of English, the College of English and or in science, and then you have the dean of philosophy or whatever, and then you have the president of said university. It kind of reminds me of that.
I was getting myself confused because I forgot that Alhaitham was offered the position of Grand Sage multiple times. I was getting myself confused because I was like, well, if was he a scribe before, if when he was acting Grand Sage, he went back to being a scribe. So I was making a little loop-de-loop in there.
Don't think it's that he was offered to be the Grand Sage, but he was offered to be a sage.
No, he was offered Grand Sage
Really?
multiple times. Yeah.
But the guy in charge has been in charge for a while, hasn't he?
I guess Azar, you mean?
Yeah, that crazy motherfucker.
I don't know how long he has been. I just know his character stories say that it was offered to him multiple times and he turned it down.
Interesting. I would be very curious to know where Azar fits into that idea.
Yeah, that's a good question.
We know that he's been trying to make a fake god since we left Inazuma, but I don't know how long that actually has been.
Well, we know that Alhaitham is 2 years younger than Kaveh. So Kaveh is thought to be what, mid to late 20s?
Well, Azar is definitely 90, so.
Yeah, Kaveh specifically is either 22 to like 25 because we know his dad died 20 years ago and he says he was very young and couldn't help his mom.
So yeah, I mean, maybe Alhaitham was offered when he was really young.
Which is like in a world of academia is a very strange thing.
Yeah, but he's always stood out because I know Kaveh says after his grandmother died and he put her to rest, that's when he finally decided to join the Akademiya. And of course he took the test, I guess like the entrance exam, and just scored through the roof. And Kaveh remembers before he really even knew him of just knowing of him because of how high his scores were when he was admitted.
You want to know something really cute too about his grandmother? Well, first off, Alhaitham, even though he doesn't outright say it in the way I'm gonna say it, he absolutely fucking adored his grandmother to no end. Like, that woman raised him, put up with him, helped him. You know, she homeschooled him.
After he was orphaned.
Orphaned! Is it bad that I draw a parallel of Granny Oni and Alhaitham's grandmother?
No, absolutely.
In the same, like, Granny Oni is a badass bitch in her own right.
Yeah.
But it's very similar to where we have these kind of rambunctious little boys on their lonesome, needing somebody to help guide them.
Well, what's really cute to me is that Alhaitham's grandmother was a Kusharwar scholar, like Kaveh.
That's the darshan that studies technology, by the way.
It's Kaveh's world. We're just living in it there. But his grandmother just had so many wonderful things and like things that she said to him that really help him get through the day still. Like she said to him, you and your father are both like reading, and now I can't say if the two of you have been giving too much to share wisdom or not, but always remember that being different is a gift. And soon before she passed, she said, you are a smart child. Many people have large egos and personalities to act on their own, but you are outstanding and possess a broader horizon than any ordinary person. This isn't a bad thing, but you have to take care to have a clearer mind than the others.
I felt like she was sort of saying, like, you're so freakishly smart, you're going to be very lonely.
Well, she also said, though, you must understand that the vain pursuits are but dust. So, you know, all these people who are chasing egos in academics, that doesn't really matter, even though they're going to act like it's the top matter. And you must decide what path will give you the greatest wisdom. So telling him still the idea of like being different is okay. You should be different because all these guys only care about their egos and their heads are going to blow up with all the ego they got.
Right.
And when Alhaitham applied for the Akademiya after his grandmother passed, he found out that she'd actually already applied for him. So that was like her last almost dying wish was for him to finally go to the Akademiya and be around other smart people, even though she knew none of them were going to be as smart as him.
And she got special permission for him to take classes from other darshans, even though he was in Harabata. He actually had special permission because of his grandmother to take classes in some of the other darshans as he was going up in his academic career.
And you know what's interesting? We don't hear a lot about his mentor, besides his grandmother, but his academic mentor.
Did he have one?
I don't know. That's my question. Because Chinyari and Sino talk a lot about theirs. And Kaveh talks about his, but we've also met her because she's having the tomato growing competition with Cyrus.
The tomato competition.
You gotta have some juicy reds.
Yeah, listen, when you're retired, you grow tomatoes. And I don't know what that means yet, but maybe in 100 years.
Oh, 100. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be a while before I retire.
Damn.
At this rate.
It's not like you're going to have Social Security.
Yeah.
I'm going to be like, what's so, like, if I ever had kids, they'd be, what is Social Security, grandma? Go back to bed. You're confused. Like,
take your pills.
Yeah, at my day, we thought we were going to get Social Security and it was going to save us. Yeah, right, grandma.
She's having one of her bad days.
Now I feel like Kaveh. I feel poor. And like I have to move in with like my ex-best friend. But I think actually it'd be a great time to talk a little bit about how Kaveh and Alhaitham really actually became friends initially, which was through the Akademiya. You know, Kaveh and Alhaitham actually worked together on some research, which was fun. It was all about decoding ruins and the architectural philosophy of King Deshret's civilization through the ruins. So with this research, they were trying to fill in the gaps of some understandings they had about ancient languages. And also they wanted to revolutionize architecture in areas of Sumeru because of this unique terrain that they could find through Deshret's ruins. So it's basically the two of them coming together and shaking hands, and Kaveh being like, I want to make better architecture in the desert. Because my dad died in the desert, and I think this will help. And then Alhaitham being like, well, my dad studied words, and I want to study words, and I'm going to decode this ancient language because it's also a sin. Came together, decided to try to work together. And
This conversation.
It's a sin. Language. Linguistics.
Trying to break down linguistics will get you skynailed. So
It's true. It is true.
Literally, Celestia being fucking horrible to anthropologists.
yes, they're like skynail. So they end up having a huge fight during this research.
This is also just, I thought it was funny that this is the only joint research study Alhaitham ever did. And he's like, this was a mistake. But there were also other people, other students that were in this project with them when they first started, and they all eventually dropped out because they couldn't keep up with Kaveh and Alhaitham because they're both so smart.
Yeah, it's two geniuses butting heads too, because they have such different philosophies on life.
Yeah, and Kaveh felt bad for all the other students and kept spending his time to try to help them with their part of the project. Whereas Alhaitham was like, no, if you can't keep up, that's your problem.
Yeah, like get the fuck out.
And that's sort of like what started them fighting with each other. That whole philosophy of like, well, no, we have to like help these other people and kind of hold their hand a little bit. And Alhaitham was like, no, we don't. You're being ridiculous. And Kaveh's like, you're being an egoist. And, you know, Alhaitham's like, you're just an impractical idealist. Like, so that it's so interesting that such a big cause of their disagreements is so philosophical.
Yes.
It's not like I'm pissed at him because he cheated on our project or he wronged me in some concrete way. It was really just a philosophical difference between the two of them.
That's actually really interesting because that has happened multiple times within the linguistic field, especially when it comes to linguistic anthropology, because you see Alhaitham using iconography that's placed upon architecture, interpreting it one way, versus Kaveh looking at it in a far different perspective. So you pull this into IRL life and see how different schools or different theologies of how to interpret things can happen just from a disagreement of philosophies or ideologies.
Mm-hmm.
I also felt like there was this very unique circumstance of like how much they care also about each other. I know it's like, Amanda, stop with your but I felt like Alhaitham, and we see this a lot like in the Darshan event and in other small interactions we've had with Kaveh and Alhaitham. But Alhaitham the whole time is like, Kaveh, you have to start caring so much because it's gonna tear you apart.
Mm.
And that I think inherently shows the empathy that Alhaitham has for Kaveh. And I think it shows that he truly does care, whether you're a Kaveh Alhaitham shipper or you just want them to be friends, whatever you might think. Alhaitham getting mad at Kaveh for caring too much is because he's seeing Kaveh get hurt. And anyone who has spent more than 2 hours in the library as a college student knows how miserable you could be after spending an evening in the library, especially when you don't get any of your own work done. You just help others.
Yeah, I have different feelings about this because I do think that Alhaitham cares about Kaveh, but I think that there's maybe a few reasons why, at least in my headcanon. But in terms of like him letting Kaveh live with him, that was because when they did this research study, the Akademiya provided housing resources as a part of like the payment for the study, basically. So that's how Alhaitham got this house. But at the time, Kaveh was like, I don't need to live there. I don't need your house. I don't want to be around you. And so he was like, no, thanks. But then later, when he went bankrupt on Dori's palace, he sort of came crawling back to Alhaitham and just sort of complaining. And then that's when Alhaitham let him come live there because he felt guilty that that house was supposed to be both of theirs. But then, you know, Kaveh was like, peace out. And so Alhaitham let him come back. But I do think it's really messed up that Alhaitham charges him rent.
Oh, yeah.
It's like that house was given to both of you. And, you know, like Kaveh just didn't want to live with you at the time, but now he really needs it. And you're like, well, you can live here, but you have to pay rent.
Not only do you have to pay rent, but Alhaitham assigns chores to Kaveh. Like he's 12.
Yeah.
Like he's like, you're going to work for your keep and still give me money.
Yeah, it's really kind of messed up. And so I do think that part of the reason he feels for Kaveh is guilt, but I also think that they've just always had a fiery connection with that, those philosophical differences kind of keeping them sparking. The evidence for this I found was that one of Kale's voice lines where she talks about Sino bringing Alhaitham over for dinner one night. And, we know how quiet Alhaitham is and how he never talks unless there's something important to say. And at this dinner, when Kaveh wasn't around, he spent the entire meal complaining about Kaveh and not letting anyone else speak. And that's very telling, I think. That's a really deep little tell about his character that they kind of implanted into Kale's voice lines.
No, it's very true.
He really got under his skin.
Yeah. And nothing really gets under his skin normally.
It's because he loves him.
And they were roommates.
It's all about love, guys. This is Love Island.
He also thinks that Kaveh being his polar opposite is valuable to him because he thinks it helps him see more aspects of the world. So it's it helps with his scientific observations that he makes just sitting around the living room, listening to Kaveh complain about whatever.
He very much sees it as a mirror, this mirror effect of everything I would do, you're going to do the opposite, which also helps Alhaitham predict when Kaveh is going to be drunk at the tavern. Well, if it were me, I would just go home tonight. Let me go make sure Kaveh gets home safe.
Right.
But I will say Kaveh is appreciative as well. He, in his voice lines about Alhaitham, he does mention that Alhaitham's helped him out a lot lately. And if they were as close as they were back when they were students, he'd be very thankful. But right now, he can't get any appreciation out of his mouth because he's so damn pissed all the time. And one of my favorite voice lines Alhaitham has, it's in a quest though. He says something like, your rent is due and I'm going to buy new furniture with that money. So give me the money ASAP. And Kaveh's like, are you trying to kill me? Your furniture choices are terrible.
I mean, they are.
I mean, as an architect, it makes sense. But even at the end of the story quest, when he's introduced there, he's just putting up paintings and furnishing the place and just kind of making it look really nice. That's his main concern.
And I will say too, Alhaitham, in my opinion, is very kind to Kaveh in the fact that he helps Kaveh keep it a secret that he lives there. Because I don't think Alhaitham cares if people know Kaveh's there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Alhaitham cares what people think at all, anytime.
That's true. And that's why his quest was about a hive mind.
Yes.
They were like, all these people are kind of programmed to hate me.
Which that was his story quest was really great, but so strange.
Yeah.
It was real weird. And I kind of get where they were going with it. And this idea, I loved the more abstract idea of the duality of why won't you think like us? Why won't you think like all the rest of us? And, go with the status quo being traditionally smart versus Alhaitham, who is genius level.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about this a bit later, but kind of a representation of autistic characteristics and how it plays with intelligence and how a lot of people are extremely intimidated. And we know this because the asshole who makes a hive mind is literally mad because Alhaitham pointed out that his facts were wrong.
I love that.
He was like, hey, your science doesn't match up here. I'm gonna turn everyone in the Akademiya against you. Fragile.
It's that kid who holds a grudge. You told him that 2 + 2 = 4 when he thought it equaled 5. And he's remembered that every day since he was 6 years old. And he's been writing in his diary about you every day.
But also, wasn't he mad because Alhaitham rejected his research proposal?
Yes.
Well, because it was false.
Well, also it was based on, it involved human evolution, which was a big no-no for the Akademiya.
Yeah, it's one of the 6 cardinal sins of the Akademiya. You can't fuck with that.
And here he is fucking around with trying to find the origin of language.
Origin of language versus messing with evolution.
Yeah, but origin of language is a cardinal sin too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing is that Alhaitham is so smart that he is able to get around the fact that it is a cardinal sin. He is able to manage his proposals, his research, what he's writing down in a way that it does not seem like he's looking for the origination of language and linguistics. It looks like I'm just looking into what Deshrits people talked, like what language they talked, or I don't know, the Tignarians. Like I heard about them, so I'm gonna go see if this will tell me anything about like how to decipher their language.
It's like trying to learn Coptic and learning very phonetically how ancient Egyptians spoke, which you can hear the phonetic translation in almost pretty accurate in the second Mummy movie.
But yeah, I think that, when it comes to the cardinal sins, like Alhaitham knows how to get away with it himself and knows that he can get away with it, but does not trust anyone else applying to break the cardinal sins in a research proposal to do it without like causing an issue. What are the 6 cardinal sins?
You shall not interfere with human evolution. That's number 1 of these 6 cardinal sins, the commandments.
Dottore and A have both tried to break that rule.
Yep. You shall not tamper with life and death.
Dottore, anyone who's fucked with Irminsul, the Hexen Circle. Okay.
Barbara and Chi-Chi, mind you. You shall not delve beyond the universe. Xingqiu is guilty of this because it was his story.
Gold.
Alice.
Nicole.
Star Rail. Everyone who's on the Astral Express.
Absolutely. You shall not investigate the origin of words. I'll hate them.
Me.
Yeah, all of us, really. You shall not revere gods without acts of devotion.
Everyone in this fucking game at this point.
Clothar specifically.
He was like, fuck you, Nahida. And Nahida was locked away in a bubble like,
And last but not least, and the most sussy one, you shall not divulge secrets without a hint of fear.
I hate that.
That's us. That's only us. And Alice, maybe. And maybe
Sean
Nicole.
Lee.
He's not divulged. That's the thing. He fears.
The second who came, maybe.
I think he knows something that has put the fear of God into his body.
I thought you were about to say booty.
Body yada yada.
He's
Body yada yada yada.
body.
Did Bosacius have something? Did he not fear divulging his secrets?
Maybe.
And he got body yada yada.
These are the cardinal sins of the Akademiya, but they are related to something else in the game too, right? They relate back to the Celestia's rules of life.
Do they?
I didn't know Celestia gave us actual rules. I thought they were like, figure it out yourself, and then when you fuck
We
it
just
up,
know
we're
there's
just gonna
forbidden
Skynail you.
knowledge.
Yeah, the forbidden knowledge, and we've kind of broken a lot of them because the heavenly principles smacked our ass. So I'm guessing these are kind of like acting rules of the universe, like don't mess with Irminsul, don't question Irminsul, don't question Celestia, don't talk about Conria. Like those unspoken rules, I feel like are woven into the 6 sins of the Akademiya. And what I mean is each and every single cardinals references to things Celestia will punish, like we saw them punish Sylvan Dagnir. And we've had a couple of theories of like, were they revering another god and devoting to that god rather than Celestia? We know, not delving beyond the universe. Conria, we shall not tamper with life and death. I don't know that one yet, but it's interesting to think of how each and every single one of these could be connected to events that have happened due to Celestia's consequences.
So these are from Sino's character story 5, and he talks about that, when these are ancient, and that when the Akademiya was first established, its researchers wielded their boundless imagination and innovation to the fullest with the abundant resources available at their beck and call. And so they had done all this stuff, and that when they were no longer able to satisfy their curiosity on the planet, they turned their focus to the starry skies, whereas some others even attempted to tamper, with life and death. However, and it just says, however, these kinds of knowledge were not things they should or could have touched upon. And to prevent researchers from being devastated by their own knowledge, the sages laid out the 6 cardinal sins. So we don't know exactly what happened, but I'm assuming that, because doesn't this kind of go back Deshret and like the forbidden knowledge creating the calamity in the desert before Rukkhadevata fixed everything? So I'm assuming that maybe it's tied into that, or maybe it's even older and there was some other mishaps that were happening. But yeah, it just seems like once they started dealing with life and death and the stars, something bad happened. And so they established these ancient rules to make sure that it didn't.
And we don't really know what exactly forbidden knowledge is, right?
Correct.
Like what that knowledge is.
We think it has something to do with the truth of the world. I mean, if we're to believe before sun and moon, it's the fact that the stars are fake and that humanity wasn't always around, that it's something that was brought there or created on top of something else.
Right. I do want to take a step back into the Archon quest for a second, since we are on the note of forbidden knowledge. When we go to the desert in the Archon line with Alhaitham, we end up meeting up with Sino, Dea, Candace, and that is when we put the gang together to go free Lesser Lord Kusanali.
Mm-hmm. With Nilu's help, your favorite.
Who? Anyway. I just leveled her sword up, so or the sword I have on her, which is an adult blade. I'm saying it's not a dull blade, guys. Don't
I thought you said
Wow.
it was.
Oh no, I know. I'd treat her a little better than that. If I had freaking Dottore as a playable character, he'd be level 1, no weapon, and I'd figure out a way to like kill him somehow.
You would just be jumping off cliffs all the time.
He'd be in my teapot in like a prison cell. Like I'd make it happen. But we come up with this whole plan. And there's a lot of parts to the plan. Tinyari gets struck by lightning. I had to throw that in there. So part of what Alhaitham does is we purposely get caught by these sages in the Akademiya. And Alhaitham pretends to take a forbidden knowledge can. I don't even know what to call it.
The
It's
capsule.
like a capsule, yeah.
Like he decides to, take the can of knowledge that is for forbidden knowledge, and he's like, guzzle, guzzle, bitch. But it's not really forbidden knowledge. And he has a voice line where he's like, well, I've done enough research on how the Akasha terminal, and we never talk about the Akasha. So for those who need reference, the Akasha is the earpiece that the people of Sumeru wear when we first get there.
It's the attached Google.
Yeah, it gives them access to Irminsul and Irminsul's knowledge.
It's the internet.
He's like, I know enough about how the terminal works and all that jazz that I knew how to temper with it. So he made it look like he had forbidden knowledge. He's able to temper with his Akasha terminal to make it turn red, because we saw someone take a forbidden knowledge capsule once before and it turned red and the person lost their mind. And it, honest to God, seemed like Alhaitham lost his mind. And I think that the actors in Fontaine, like, why did we have Ayaka come over to Fontaine for that movie event? They gotta hire Alhaitham, best actor in all of Teyvat.
He would probably turn it down, though.
But then I would pull like what he does with Dia, where he's like, Dia's the perfect fit for the Akademiya. I don't understand why she turned down the job. I'd be like, oh, but Alhaitham, you're the perfect candidate for the job. I'd be like, I'll give you money.
But did anyone do a better job than Isaac in the Archon?
No, that's
no one
the
could
Oscar
beat.
goes to.
And if you need a reminder, that is the little boy who pretended to be Nahida.
Yes.
So fucking
See,
good.
America, drag is for children.
Yeah.
Genshin tells us so.
Yeah, listen to Genshin. Give me Albedo IRL. But no, I just thought that scene was crazy. And I wanted to make sure we talked about it for a second, because I think Alhaitham has 2 big moments in the Archon line. I mean, he has a lot of bigger moments in the Archon line because he really does come up with most of the plan. But his acting scene and his fight with Sino are such like stark memories for me.
Yeah, and we find out the only reason he was able to do that fake out is because he had read the Akasha's system manual. And so he knew how to alter the status signals of the Akasha. Because he just he reads stuff like that for fun.
Your funsies.
Who doesn't? Speaking of, when all this is over, when they freed Nahida, we mentioned that, they overthrow the sages basically, because the sages were trying to turn Scaramouche into a fake god. So all the sages, and the grand sages are now sent to like the Avidia forest to live. So I don't really know what's going on over there. I don't know if like a
You
shroom boar got them.
constantly hope to find them just wandering
I
around
do.
with like sticks rubbing together, trying to make a fire.
Imagine like there should be clues of like their whereabouts out there. Wouldn't that be so funny? Like you're always finding like torn pages and things. Why aren't I finding their stuff out there?
Yeah.
I don't know. Or it would have been cool if like at Gandharvaville they maybe had like an NPC that starts talking about, oh, we saw Azar again. Like
Yeah.
fucking bitch. Like, you know, like that'd be so fun.
Maybe they're in Atlan.
Ooh.
No, they were sent to the forest. They make that very
They
clear.
could have left. The forest is all around Sumeru City.
I don't think they'd survive.
But what is south of like Port Ormos? What if they got on a ship and, skedaddled?
They drowned.
Well,
They went to Inazuma. They honestly, I think south of them is Watasubi Island. So good luck.
Yeah. I feel like they were
shit.
banished to the forest, so somebody's keeping an eye out to make sure they're still there and like
Yes, someone mentions that Tinyari is busy with it, but like they mentioned that the forest rangers and Tinyari and Kale are pretty busy keeping an eye. I forget where, but someone mentions it. Maybe that's why Tinyari couldn't come to the big dinner at the end. That was their reasoning.
oh maybe.
For those who don't remember, there was a huge dinner at the end of the Archon line where they invited everyone involved with freeing Nahida and overthrowing the sages, but Tinyari didn't show up.
he was recovering from being struck by lightning.
Well, he pretended like, he was trying to be like the strongest person and not act like he got hurt. So I could have seen him going, but I think they said he was invited, but he had his hands full. Anyway, that aside, when Azar and the sages, all the sages I should mention except for Tinyari's, because he was actually locked away because he told them not to make a fake god. So he's still in, but all the others are out. And they offer Alhaitham to be the Grand Sage, to replace Azar again, I guess. I didn't realize he'd been offered it before. And he's like, I will do it until you find someone new. And then that doesn't last because he very quickly resigns.
Yes.
Yeah, at the end of his story quest, he's like, I'm out.
He's like, I've had enough of this.
Hive mind? I don't think so. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, all of the freaking scholars in the Akademiya are like, you guys, not having our headsets is too hard.
Yeah.
I have to read books. No. I
They're
don't want to
such
do
little
stuff.
bitches. They are such little bitches because it comes out that a lot of the scholars have they've stopped submitting research papers. There's just not a lot going on anymore. And the ones who are waiting for somebody else to do something good. And their entire reason is that they don't have all the answers in their ear. And it's just too much work to have to actually do the problem themselves.
Yeah.
Was this how life was before the internet?
Yeah. Yep. Let me and Tiff tell you, yes, it was.
Yeah, you had to do the long division yourself.
God, I hate long
You had
division.
to go to the library and check out books and then sit and read the books.
And they're really salty about it too. As if they're just let's just wait until somebody comes up with a good plan. We'll just jump on the bandwagon. Our name won't be first in the list, but it'll be in there, so that's fine. At least we'll get some credit for somebody
Trying to
else's
ride on
work.
other people's coattails.
Yeah, little bitches.
But we find out, though, that even though he was the Grand Sage for a very short period of time, during Sino's second story quest, when we're trying to look into some information about the Temple of Silence, we're trying to figure something out. We're working with Tinyari, and Alhaitham starts rambling something off, and we're like, how did you know that? And he's like, well, I made sure to read about it while I had access to everything. So he honestly maybe said yes to being Grand Sage just so he would have temporary access to everything. And he went and he made sure to memorize that shit.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I could see it.
I'd also like to note that in Sino's second story quest, Alhaitham and Kaveh are getting along very well.
Because they're roommates.
Oh, because of what Sethos says?
No, I'm not even there yet. Ooh, what Setho says is totally woohoo. But no, actually, every time we've seen Kaveh and Alhaitham together prior to Sino's second story quest, they've been bickering. Think about the Darshans.
Mm-hmm.
When Kaveh's about to grab the crown or grabs the crown and it breaks in half or whatever, Alhaitham's basically you dumb. He's not nice to him. during the Darshan battle. They argue a lot. I mean, the first time we meet Kaveh is at the end of the Archon line. He runs up to Alhaitham and he's like, oh my god, I was in the desert. I heard we overthrew the sages. Is it true? And Alhaitham's like, yes, actually, I was in charge of it. And I was involved in this and this and this. And he's like, okay, so you're lying. What really happened? Because Kaveh doesn't believe him. So then right off the bat, they're like bickering and yelling at each other. We know their history with the Akademiya issues. But in Sino's story quest, they're volunteering to do stuff together. They're like, oh yeah, we'll go to the House of Dana and do some research on that. No problem. The first time we run into Kaveh in that storyline, he specifically mentions that he's getting coffee beans for Alhaitham. Now, whether that was a chore or something he was doing out of the goodness of his heart, we're not sure. But yeah, the two of them, just the entire quest line, are getting along very well. And as the quest ends, and I feel like I'm doing my best not to spoil too much, but at the end of it, everyone's kind of be like, all right, bye guys. Like, and Kaveh is like, oh, I think I'm gonna go finish like cleaning up the books that we used in the House of Dana. Now Haytham's like, that's a good idea. I'm gonna come with you. And I'm like, oh my god, they're volunteering to hang out
That's
together.
true. Yeah.
It's such a night and day.
You know that Alhaitham does mention that doing the whole Nahida jailbreak thing really had an impact on his social life, because all of the people that were involved in that, he's now more or less, he says, friends with, to the point where he might, actually nod at them when he passes them on the street.
Not nod at them. I mean, calm yourself down there, Alhaitham.
I wonder if maybe they're kind of setting that up to where like that, because he's such a lone wolf by nature, that maybe being a part of this big thing and making such a huge difference in Sumeru and like the events of Sumeru, maybe that's sort of warming him up a little bit more to Kaveh in terms of their whole philosophical difference, where Kaveh's like, well, no, you got to care about how people feel and help people out and not just look out for yourself. So maybe that's sort of making him come around a little bit.
And I think that's even more shown in Sino's story quest too. I mean, Sino is in a bit of a jam, and Alhaitham is very willing to help right off the bat. In fact, he goes out of his way to find where Sino is supposed to be because he hears wind about something. And instead he finds us. We're like, hey. I definitely think, though, there's a big difference in Alhaitham. And you're absolutely right that the Archon quest, I do believe, changed him. And I mean, from what we could tell, like, he goes to dinner with Tinyari or Sino or Kaveh kind of often. It's referenced multiple times by Kale, by Tinyari. We see it in, I believe, Kaveh's hangout.
His character demo is Kaveh, Tinyari, and Sino. They're playing TCG. The three are sitting around bitching about Alhaitham and basically like how he's not there and how he like normal stuff. And like if he can actually, really fight and stuff like that. And Alhaitham shows up and he's like, I can really fight, but I don't need to because I'm smart.
He's like, you want me to show you?
Yeah. And they're like, deal the cards.
It's like screw power, knowledge. Power.
And I actually think it's interesting because, they all have different voice lines about one another. We know what Kaveh thinks, and Sino sees Alhaitham as like a smart and reliable person, and he thinks that he's different than most smart people, which he thinks are egotistical asshats. And Tinyari has a voice line where he's basically like, hey, be careful around him. And I'm not telling you to be careful because he's dangerous or anything, but because it's really easy to misunderstand him, and he does mean well, even though he might not seem like it based on what he says. So I think, the core group here is starting to understand Alhaitham as well.
Yeah.
In a way they might not have if the Archon line hadn't happened.
And Setho's starting to understand his relationship with Kaveh.
So Setho's voice line, I wrote this one down. I was like, this is the piece de resistance. Setho's goes, I saw those two at the tavern once, and another time at the cafe. Actually, I think I saw them once at the Grand Bazaar, too. The architect guy, he's always talking in a hushed tone. I guess he doesn't want people to hear. But, okay, it's not like I purposely listen in. It's just something about those two guys hanging out together. You just can't look away. It's a telenovela.
Just adding fuel to the fire.
He's like, this is my like romance. This is my slow burn romance that I am watching.
Sethos is like, this is my Bridgerton.
Yeah, literally. Oh my God. Kaveh speaking in a British accent. Can we take a moment?
And like, yeah, I know Kave's like can barely breathe because his corset is so tight. And he's like so scared that someone's gonna see him alone with Alhaitham out in public.
Yes.
We can't have that. We can't have that. Unattended? Unaccompanied? Nah.
Right.
Also, Nahida is really surprised to find out that Alhaitham and Kaveh are roommates. She has a voice line where she says something along the lines of, I see Alhaitham as an absolute genius and he's always thinking differently, and that's why I call on him. And she goes, oh, and Kaveh, I see him as the shining example of our nation and what it's supposed to be. And then it's like a ... And she's like, oh, they're roommates? Interesting. It's like something along those lines. Nahida, don't read their minds. It's going to be bickering or not good. But I also wanted to take note as well that Dory has a pretty interesting voice line about Alhaitham, where she insinuates that Alhaitham has come snooping around asking people questions about her, and therefore she is not a fan of Alhaitham.
I understand. If someone's not going to you like, hey, what are you about? But are going to everybody but you, I get it.
I think Alhaitham's trying to find a way to say that Dory fucked up with Kaveh and get Kaveh his money back.
I mean, that too. I mean, he's trying to protect his husband here, but...
And I'm normally the shipper, or he's trying to kick Kaveh to the curb. It's like one or the other.
I mean, she's already been arrested by his friend Sino.
Yeah, that's true.
Very true.
He could be wanting like, hey, Dory, you bankrupted this bitch. At least let him stay in your damn palace.
Right.
He built.
Exactly.
Have we seen this palace?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Palace of Alcazarzaray.
It's up in the northeast.
What? Wait, what? Can you say that again?
Alcazarzaray.
In the forest, there's like two pretty building areas you can go to. One is Paradise Dia, and then there's that really pretty house up by like the mushroom forest.
Yeah, mushroom forest.
That's the Palace of
Alcazarzaray.
That one. And it's like surrounded by water, and there's a really pretty gazebo.
Oh shit, that's hers?
Yeah, that's Kaveh's masterpiece that bankrupted him.
Yeah, I was gonna say not only is it Dory's, but Kaveh built this shit.
He may call it his masterpiece, but Port Ormos will always be his masterpiece.
Yeah.
He did rebuild.
He did rebuild Port Ormos, and it's magnifique.
Anyway, enough of Kaveh. I'm sorry that I keep bringing him up. It's just so damn hard with these two. Alhaitham is really well known for wearing headphones.
Let's go, sensory.
We'd be remiss to note that, he wears a pouch around his hips. And in that pouch, he always has his keys, whatever reading materials he is currently reading, and a music player that he made all by himself when he became Scribe, because people kept trying to talk with him and he didn't want to hear them. He wanted to focus on his reading. And so he made this music player and his headphones connect to it.
So he made the first ever Walkman.
Yes.
And just listening to the Port Ormos theme the entire time.
And that's what I would do.
Yeah.
And me at work all day, I'm like, anyway, but it's really funny because not only does he play music on them, but he'll actually put them on and listen to people and just pretend he can't hear them because he's snooping a little bit.
If you've worked in an office, you've done that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes you want to be left alone, and sometimes lawyers can be really needy.
Yeah. So I wanted to make sure we mentioned that because I think it's important. And, Allie, you make a really good point that it could possibly be a sensory item for him as well.
It's more fan canon, I should say. Nothing has ever been confirmed by Hoyoverse themselves, but there's a lot of characters that are kind of like we know there are characters that are queer coded when we look at Ningguang and Beidou, and there are also characters that are neurodivergent coded. So like Sino, Alhaitham, Kaveh a little bit, Fremine, and Alhaitham specifically. When everyone found out he was wearing headphones, they're like, I do that. The Vine, if you will. Haha, I do that. But there's also like a lot of people would do parallels with, you know, as you brought up young Sheldon of like, and the Big Bang theory of elder Sheldon, there's a lot of similar characteristics of high functioning autism, or I believe the more appropriate term is unassisted autism. And with that, it can be a lot of like trouble with expressing empathy, which we see, this coming off as insensitive and indifferent, laser focus, and like, of course, our auditory sensitivity. We've got also a very interesting parallel with IRL polymaths, which a polymath is kind of, think Iron Man or Da Vinci would be also a good parallel of a polymath who is like super well learned in multiple different like fields.
Albedo
would be considered a polymath. And through history, there's a couple of theories that a lot of these big names like Da Vinci and like Hassan ibn Alhaitham, which is kind of the, you know, namesake of our character Alhaitham, were considered neurodivergent. So it's really cool and interesting as someone who is on the spectrum or who is neurodivergent. It's really cool to see these characteristics played in a more empathetic way, because as we've discussed, Alhaitham is not just this two-dimensional, well, I'm kind of a grumpy smart guy and everyone's too stupid. Like we clearly know from playing him, from learning about him, he's so much more than that. He is in 4D, fully dimensional.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Alhaitham's goal in life is just to live a leisurely life that doesn't give him too much responsibility or too much leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And while, like we said earlier, like people on the outside might think that he's selfish, he's really just trying to work rationally, which also is because he cares. He's like, we're going to do this quick and easy. We're going to do this as painless as possible. Or the only way to get this done is painful. And I'm sorry. Like, it's just what we got to do. And he has a really good insight into human behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I love that he's so taciturn. He's so like, you know, someone who just doesn't say a lot, and that he's obsessed with linguistics. So it's like he doesn't really use language a whole lot, but he's very interested in it. In fact, he even got his vision reading a book about the power of language.
Yeah. He just like turned to the back and it was boom, vision.
Yeah, it was all about like the book was about the power of language and how it governs human thought, like how it actually has the power to govern the way that you think. And then of course when he got the vision, he instantly knew what it was and he didn't really think much about it. He's like in that club of characters that was like, oh, this, I don't really care much about this. I guess I'll use it since it's handy. But he just kind of saw it as like another tool in the toolbox. It wasn't life-changing for him.
Yeah, and like it wasn't going to help him out with it, like with his studies and stuff. So
with his reading, yeah. But I just love that he like doesn't really talk, and then he's so fascinated with language itself.
He has an actual voice line too, where he says that the dendrovision isn't help to his research, but that he's, you know, he's not denying that it's effective through its elemental powers physically, but he's like, it's just not always useful for me. Very rendition of other people. Also, Alhaitham inspired a furniture piece. He actually technically designed the glorious emerald tapestry, which you could put in your teapot. The description of it says that it was a design that came from a note when a researcher was trying to solve a puzzle. And they're like, yeah, if we just adjust it, we can make these beautiful designs. And they say that researcher is now the scribe at the Akademiya, and he's declined to comment on the story about how he created the design that now is a beautiful rug that you can have in your house. I just thought that was an interesting tidbit and something that Alhaitham does not give a fuck about. Again, he's like, stop trying to interview me. I don't want to be in the paper.
I feel like this was truly designed by Kaveh just to fuck with him.
Oh my god. Or Alhaitham like left a note by accident that Kaveh gave him. And now Kaveh's like, everyone thinks it was you, but it was me.
It would make more sense.
It would, but it makes sense too when you think of Alhaitham's elemental and bursts, like the attacks he has with all the diamonds and everything, because the tapestry has more of like a green diamondy and triangular design to it, similar to his burst.
It's funny you bring that up because that brings me back to Hassan ibn Alhaitham because he's kind of the father and the original theorist of optics, which is like lenses and stuff. And in that burst, diamonds are one of like, or a rhombus are one of the easiest forms to reflect light. In Alhaitham's burst, he says reflect. So it could be the chicken or the egg thing where like, did they base it off his burst or did this inspire it? Like,
it's an interesting call. While we're on the topic of little notes with Alhaitham, the description of his outfit is don't bother the scribe with trivialities. Why do you think he has those soundproofers on anyway? And that was from an experienced staff member at the Temple of Silence, aka the fake Temple of Silence. Because there are 2 temples of silence now. God damn it.
What I'm imagining is in Alhaitham's closet, just like Robin from Batman. It's the same outfit each time.
Oh, yeah. Well, unfortunately, he doesn't have a skin, so that's the truth for now.
Give us some booty shorts. I want a cowboy Alhaitham.
That would be interesting. Also, Alhaitham's constellation is a vulture, which I found interesting because it's a bird of prey, but I wasn't sure if there was any symbolism in the vulture overall that would relate back to Alhaitham, or if they were just giving it to him because it seemed deserty.
Yeah.
It's kind of a mixture of both. So Vultur Volness, which is the constellation, you can see it as a vulture, but a lot of people go back to either vulture, eagle, or a falcon, and I'm leaning more toward the falcon just because it relates more to the mythology that I'm about to go over. But in Latin, it translates to Aquila, which is the eagle that carried the thunderbolts of Zeus. Like, it's also considered a representation of Garuda. In Babylonian mythology, it represents the story of Antinous and Ganymede, which I absolutely butchered. It also has a representation in China where you have Xishe and Jinyu and their love story and their trials and tribulations. But I think the more apt representation of the Vultur Volanus in this aspect is how the falcon of Horus. And so we have a lot of, Egyptian mythology, iconography, and symbology. Sino is kind of like our Anubis stand-in here, and Alhaitham would kind of be our Horus stand-in. Instead of a jackal, we have a falcon or an eagle. And they're very reminiscent of being tied to this specific god, and he's associated with a lot of things. So he's the son of Isis and Osiris, and majority of basically his story is he kind of gets fucked up, and his left eye is kind of forsaken and eaten, and he's kind of restored under the sun and the moon. And his left eye is kind of why his left eye is considered a representation of the phases of the moon, because at first you have your full moon, he had his full eye, and as he got fucked up by his brother Seth, it kind of kept closing. It's a really interesting theory, and there's a bit more on Horus, but a lot of it came back to like the theory of optics for me, and just like how IRL Alhaitham was very much a part of the theory of optics and vision and how that represents in the world of science. And Horus lost his eye and he can't see.
No, poor Horus.
But then he got it back. And now he can see again with new perspective.
Oh, and that's Alhaitham has a new perspective after doing the Archon line.
Yes.
It all comes full circle, guys.
It's just, I like birds, and birds in mythology are really interesting. But since we have so much Middle Eastern mythology, specifically, even with Kaveh, there's so much of Iran and especially of Islam with these characters. It'd be hard to leave that out of kind of the background of Alhaitham and Kaveh.
No, I think that's a great point, Al. And I think it's really interesting to consider, and it's always so fun to see what the different IRL comparisons possibly are, too. I think our IRL comparisons, where we're going to have to pause for now, because Kirara is here with our mail, and she's getting a little impatient, tapping both of her tails on me. They're trying to get my attention right now.
Tippity tap tap.
Tippity tap tap. I think it's mail time.
Thanks, Karara.
Yes, thanks, Kirara. She walked away. She's like, I got other places to be, bitches. He took too long.
She's like, I got some balls of yarn to play with.
No, she's got more packages. So our first message comes from Travis. Travis said, if you could rework their appearance, personality, or how they play for your least or most hated character. So you're looking at your least favorite character, your most hated character within the game. Who is that person and how would you change them? Whether it be personality, appearance, playstyle, etc.
Oh.
Well, it would be Guru, and I would change him directly into Miss Hina.
Wow.
Honestly, they need to do that. Oh, man.
That would be so funny if they gave us like an event where you get to run around as Miss Hina.
Yeah, it would be fantastic.
Would you play Goru then if you had a Miss Hina skin?
Potentially, yeah.
Oh, my. Hoya, get the fuck on it. What the fuck?
Tiff goes from a Goru hater to a Goru lover overnight. And she's like, he's C6, level 90.
Well, unfortunately, I think he already is C6.
C9. 5-star skin.
Yeah. I don't know. There's something about it. Gets under my skin.
For me, it'd be Dottore, and he just wouldn't fucking exist.
Are we limiting this to playable characters?
Well, if we limited it to playable characters, it would be Arlecchino. And yeah, it'd be Arlecchino. I was like, maybe I'm gonna take that back. No, Arlecchino, first off, I'd get rid of the ponytail design-wise. I wish that she was like a short-haired queen. Like, pixie cut, cool. Like, it would have been so fun. So that's number one.
Rosaria's hair.
Yeah, like, actually, let me see a character with short hair instead of giving me a short-haired character that I think has long hair. Like, the mindfuck of Rosaria's outfit. So that would be my first fix. And my second fix would be a little less torture. Just, like, in the personality. Like, a little more empathy. But I think Arlecchino would need some therapy first. And I have not found a good therapist in Teyvat yet.
Yeah, why? When is there going to be a therapist character? That'd be fun.
I mean, it's needed, and they'd be so rich.
And like every time they're in an event or something, it's like there's a line to their door.
Watch out. You tell Dory she can make some more off of that. She's going to start learning psychology.
Yes, she will.
No, Tori's advice probably be so bad too, because it'd be like slightly like for her own gain.
Oh, yeah.
I really think that you should consider, getting away for the weekend. Have you ever thought of staying at my palace? We only charge 200 more a night.
200, that's it? 200,000, 200K.
Well, if you decide to stay longer, we give you a discount. So if you stay for the whole year, it's only 200 a night. Just so you know, you're going to share your bathroom with the other 8 rooms in the palace.
I'm surprised you didn't pick Nilou.
Don't get me started. Listen, as much as I don't like Nilou, my reasons are personal. Nilou as a character, I can accept. Nilou as a main figure in the Archon quest, who got more appreciation than Tignari, I can't. Nilou who took away an Albedo constellation, that's the part that I can't let go of.
I mean, did Nilou do that or did Amanda do that?
No, Nilou made sure to make it happen. So Nilou was like, I'm a fuck with her. Because she called me a dancer. Al and Brandon, you guys haven't answered.
I'm still thinking. My heart of hearts wants to say Faruzan.
Really?
And what I would change would not be personality, would not be gameplay, just because I love how her gameplay in Wanderer's gameplay worked so Gucci. It's the outfit. It's the very bottom of her dress, which pisses me the fuck off, and I don't know why. And for some reason, thinking of her personality, I wanted like her to wear full grandma. Like, she acts like an old catty bitch, and I want her to look like an old catty bitch.
I almost think that's like the fun of Faruzan, though, like you hear about her in the Akademiya and you're like, oh my god, Grandma Faruzan, then you see her and you're like,
she's a child.
And it's like this double take back, because you're like, this is like a younger person, A, but B, what is she wearing? Because this is like not what we wear.
True, and that's probably where like it fucks me up, because like that could be what was in style at the time.
It would be cool to get a skin, like she's trying to blend in.
Yeah, I would love for her to have a new skin. Just one, because I feel kind of lackluster for that. I would definitely change Toma, but gameplay.
Really?
Yes. And so sweet boy, I just want him to be better.
I use him all the time in Spiral Abyss.
So like I don't use him in Spiral, at least not in the later halves, but I have used him in like the earlier halves of Spiral. And like I like his shield. I just wish there was at least for me more versatility in team comp wise.
Yeah, I use him with Raiden and Xingqiu, and then you have like Raiden's electricity, and then you have Xingqiu's hydro, and then you have like his burst, Toma's burst, like adding the pyro that along with the shield.
And that works really well. And I've started playing around with the mono pyro team as him being a shield and basically support for Lenny. And I hopefully Natlan brings him more into the fold, because like I love shield users. I love Diona and I love Layla. I just wish pyro itself and his gameplay specifically for it was more versatile.
Okay. Well, my answer is child. And
the midriff?
I hate him because I am so sick of this like character type. You see it in everything and it's annoying. Like I'm just tired of like, I'm the bad boy with the heart who like does some really messed up shit, but then I have a redemption arc and then everyone loves me again. I'm like, I don't like that. I'm over it. It feels so douchey to me from a storytelling perspective. His combat and everything is fine. I just don't like the character trope that they're using him for. I will say that there's like a lot of characters that I really love the design of, but that I don't like their gameplay because I just don't think they're useful. Candace is a big one. Kaveh is actually another big one.
Ooh, okay, yeah, I understand that. Oof.
Where it's like you have to have just the right character combination for them to be even a little useful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
They have to be built just perfectly in addition to these other perfectly built characters being used with them. That's always a little frustrating to me. So
no, I definitely can understand that. And I will say with Child, you didn't say anything about his gray sweatpants.
No, I don't. I like his outfit and everything else. I like his design.
Are so raggedy.
No, that doesn't bother me. But I don't look very closely either. It's like can't stand up.
No, what it is, I look at his like where his pants meet his boots, and that's what bothers me. It's like when girls wear UGG boots with like big flowy sweatpants, and you're like, ugh.
But you're fine with the midriff, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Can we raise it though? The little tiny triangle pocket is not doing it.
I would like them to raise it, not because I'm interested in seeing more midriff, but because I'd like to know if he has scars.
Yeah, that too.
That is one of the nerdiest things I've ever heard you say.
I just want to know if he's got battle scars, damn it. Anyway, thank you, Travis, for your message. We highly appreciate it. Our next message comes from Toshiro, and they said, spoiler incoming, in the most recent Archon quest, we learned that the Luma Fate is a device that weaves the ley lines. However, much like energy, ley lines can't be created nor destroyed, only transformed. This is like, like fire, they're like, the matter cannot be destroyed. This may imply that in order to create new ley lines, the Abyss Order may try to convert all the current ley lines, which may cause the end of the world. Thoughts on the end of the world, guys?
Mm-hmm. I mean,
Tim's just like,
You've been predicting this, Fiends.
I don't want the end of the world. I just know that Genshin, their goal is to break my heart in the end. And so I'm preparing myself for my heartbreak, but that's why I always talk about death in the game, because I know it's going to break my little heart.
I mean, I don't think that it's necessarily the full-on end of the world, because then they would be ending themselves, and that seems like a lot. But I do think it talks a lot about how much is hidden in Irminsul. And if you move around these different pieces, will you hear something different? Like that, this might be very much old, like dating me, but back when I was a kid, there was always a whole big thing about if you took a record, like a heavy metal record, and you played it backwards, like you would get like some sound from the devil, like it would be telling you to go like,
Woo!
Do random crazy stuff.
Wee.
As you should.
Yeah. That's why I played it backwards. But it's almost like that type of an idea. Like if we move it around so much, will we get the truth out? Will we get kind of the truth that they want?
Yeah.
Could it be that Celestia is transforming and showing us one truth? The Abyss doesn't necessarily want the pure truth, but maybe their truth where things kind of, weigh on their side and they can kind of take over the world.
Yeah, which is where you see the difference between the Fatui and the Abyss too, where Child's like, I don't necessarily agree with them, but we're trying to figure out the same shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like the Fatui could potentially, it pains me to say, I feel like the Fatui could actually be looking for the real truth. And I don't know if it's in a positive way to help out humanity as much as it is to somehow then use that to control people. And more so, I think they want to get rid of Celestia.
Yeah, I think the Saritsa's over it.
Yeah.
I really like this idea that a ley line is a ley line and it can't be destroyed, but it can't be recreated. So what happens to a ley line when it goes away? For instance, Hidden Strife, which was our D-Luke event that gave us the D-Luke 5-star skin, we have a red ley line show up on the Falcon Coast. What happened to that ley line?
It moved.
Well, did it move? Was that a ley line that the Abyss corrupted? We don't know.
Yeah, was the red symbolizing something too?
Right. What does the red symbolize? Is it just symbolize D-Luke? Or is it something more sinister?
He spilled his hair dye.
No, are you saying his hair's dyed?
With all the stress that he's gone through, it's probably white as fuck over there.
True. Maybe it's just a wig.
He just dunks his head into the vats of wine.
Maybe.
I mean, think about it. He goes from like the shorter hair to like the high pony, which is way longer. I mean, there's a wig happening somewhere, or at least extension.
It's past D-Luke, technically. It's like Fancy Don Hung. It's past Don Hung. This is past D-Luke.
I don't know. I think the past D-Luke is just D-Luke taking that wig out of his closet.
D-Luke with extensions.
He keeps it next to Kaya's extra eye patches.
Oh my God, stop. That he takes from Jean. He's like, just give them to me, Jean. And his mother's witch hat. Anyway, I do think that there's something going on with the ley lines. And I think a lot of our talk about the waypoints and how they're also like similar to like Abyss tunnels and things like that. And there's a Melazine quest where you're dealing with the witchy Melazine. Who's my fave. I don't remember her name. But you get transported at one point into like this weird ruiny style place that kind of reminded me of Akademiya. And when you turn around through a crack in the wall, you can see the inverted city and the chasm. And it's like, okay, why are these all connected? And it makes me feel like the Abyss could do whatever the fuck they wanted with that, right? And why can't they do whatever they want with the ley lines at this point? Especially because the Luma Fate's been activated. Yay.
Yeah, but we don't really know to what extent they can mess around with it yet. So we don't know for sure what is going to happen. I mean, weaving ley lines doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be able to convert or destroy them or corrupt them necessarily, does it?
Well, think about the way that the people in Vimara Village were corrupted by Luma Fate. Think of the way we got corrupted and our memories were wiped in the latest Archon. Think about the fact that the ley lines are connected to Irminsul.
Well, yeah, but that's just messing with people's memories.
Yeah, but messing with memories, a ley line is a memory.
That's my whole theory, is that it's going to have endgame is going to be more to do with memories and altering reality and maybe going back in time more than like the ley lines causing the end of the world. I mean, I do think there's going to be like an end of world situation, but
what if our sibling's been dead this whole time and they use the Luma Fate to change our memory to think that we're looking for him, but we're really just out there to complete a quest?
And we're sharing memories with them.
Yeah. So we keep thinking they're alive and they're out there and we're looking for them. And that's the contract that Zhonglin has signed, is to not tell us the truth.
It would make sense why none of the archons will help us find our siblings.
Yeah.
Sorry, haven't seen them around. Oh.
There's a as a little side thing, it made me laugh a lot. On Petrichor, the new island off of Fontaine, there's a little side quest. It's small, but basically you're reuniting these brothers, but like you're speaking to them as traveler, and they're like, well, I know a thing or two about looking for your sibling. And then it's like nothing. Like, you know, here I'm just gonna be like, I can teach you, even though I've not found my sibling yet and nobody helps me. Let me help you. But it was like salt in the wound.
I'm sorry, no one has helped. Do you not remember when Amber hung flyers on the top of a windmill?
I know, they're all sitting at the top of a building right now.
Thank God for those flyers.
She went all the way to Leeway.
Amber tried.
Sure.
She's also looking for her grandfather.
I mean, it's more than the archons have done.
Yeah,
It
true.
is.
I still feel like somebody told Amber to put them up there.
Probably Jean.
She put them in reasonable places, and Rosaria was like, nope, nope.
Yeah. She was like, let's fuck with them.
Yeah, she doesn't know anything extra. She just wants to be an asshole.
With the fact that we cannot destroy nor create new energy, we can just remold it.
It's like ice.
Yeah, it's like ice. And just because the ley lines are in their current position now doesn't mean they were in different positions prior.
That's also true. Toshiro, you really racked our brains. Thank you for the question and the thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you. On that note, I do think that's all the time we have for today. If you liked this episode, travelers, you could send us an email at talesoftevatpod@gmail.com. If you didn't enjoy this episode, you can also send us an email at talesoftevatpod@gmail.com and let us know what topics you'd like to see in the future and what thoughts, theories, and questions you had after today's episode. You could also give us a follow on Instagram, Tales of Teyvat Pod, or on Twitter, Tales of Teyvat, where you can stay up to date on all things happening in our realm of the world, which is very tiny. But we're having a great time. So please follow us to hopefully also have a great time, if I do say so myself.
Oh, yeah.
And next week, we are going to be talking about the one and only girl who hung posters on the top of windmills, Outrider Amber. So make sure to come back to find out how to barely help someone look for their sibling, but get all the credit. Until then, safe journeys, travelers. We'll see you next time.
Bye, laconic nerds.
What the fuck's a laconic?
Laconic. Laconic, it means like, like a person of few words, someone that doesn't talk a lot.